Hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind. I'm having fun at least. I made a gaffe, so we're restarting. So, with that being said, I'm joined by Coach Roach as well as Beyond the Locker Room. How are you guys doing, first and foremost, before I go over the docket for today? Great.
Good.
Super
I
Bowl.
yes, there's a couple things that happened in Raptors land. We will go through those things today. First and foremost, we will talk about that as well as the trade deadline and how that went NBA wide. Scotty Barnes was named an All-Star reserve as well as Trey Young. It seems like the West were more healthy. So, and we were just talking about that. So we will just leave it at that. Congratulations to Barnes and of course, the Toronto Raptors getting some sort of form of representation. Do you guys want to talk about that selection at all?
Well, since we had a show, I think last week talking about our All Stars,
Yes,
so it's not anything I'm hiding. I did not have Barnes as All Star.
I
Um,
didn't either.
yeah, and for the East, actually, I think I was bang on. I think I was 12 for 12. I
I have it
think
written down somewhere
I got
here.
everybody. I think
Yeah, we were
um,
we were pretty close.
close. Yeah, so I think I will admit. I mean, for all these folks out here worrying about this, this great conspiracy against the Raptors. I tell you, for a team that got this kind of conspiracy, boy, they do tend to have a lot of all-star members on this team for a team that's supposed to be having so much issues. I can imagine if I'm a Sacramento fan wondering, like, you guys got conspiracy issues, really?
Oh, they got snubbed. They got
Big
snubbed.
The
Really?
bonus kept
The
no.
Raptors have had an all-star represented probably for about 20 of the last maybe 17, 18 years, going all the way back to Vince. Like, what are you people talking about, man? Like, I tell Raptor fans, please, man, get over it, man. There's no conspiracy. Get over it.
Not from this standpoint. No.
Right. And
Um,
for all the statisticians out there, tell me and go back the last time you saw all-star representative for a team that's 14 games under 500. I would love to see you guys pull up that number.
maybe LeBron on the Lakers team that didn't make the playoffs.
I think at that time, around that time, I think,
I have to
uh,
go back.
They're
yeah,
probably around 500 though at that
yeah,
time.
they were
Yeah,
over
so I'd have to
500.
go back. So that I was just a guess too.
Right. He might be the one, but selected, not fan selected, because that has happened. But like,
True.
yeah, from the folks that are supposed to know, the coaches and
In
other players,
terms of all-star reserves, they usually
yeah,
get those things right and that sort of thing. So yeah,
they're saying
of course, Doc Rivers selected the East. So shout out to Adrian Griffin because Doc Rivers has not really had a great record thus far in that team, and it'll be interesting to see how that team comes together or not, because they're running out of time to make it happen. So, is there anything else in terms of Barnes' selection that you guys want to discuss today? If not, we're going to move right along to the trade deadline and the departure of a Toronto media member.
I think Darko's rant, I don't care what anyone says, that helped Scotty. I really think it did. Because Darko's rant was one of the best sports viral moments in modern history by far. Everybody was talking about it. And then people started to say, Scotty Barnes. Oh, who's this Scotty Barnes guy? Even some of them on the American telecast, maybe they heard of him, but then it's like, oh. So I think Darko brought some notoriety, quite frankly, because like Dion said, and from a numbers perspective, I think Scotty individually does have all-star numbers, but the team stinks. There's a difference. It's always been a team award to get selected to the All-Star game. Lowry and DeRozan would make it years after year because they were always a top four team in the East.
Mhm.
Kawhi and Siakam, or Siakam and Lowry, because the teams were really good. Even last year, the team was not very good, but Siakam was an injury replacement. I remember that now at the time. So to see Scotty make it, I'm very pleased for him. I was a little shocked just in terms of because the team is so bad. That's the only reason why. Not so much the numbers, but the team. Trey Young deserved to make it. The guy's averaged like 28 and 10 every single year. If Scotty Barnes averaged 28 and 10, I think we know a few good Raptor fans. We'll just put it that way. That would be irate on the spaces. So,
There might be.
and,
There's also people that would be jumping for joy regardless of the record too.
hmm. But well, I guess what I'm saying is good for Scotty. I'm happy for him. He's the first of his draft class to get selected to the All Star game, and I just hope that I think his style of game and the flair that he sometimes does play with is suited for the All-Star game as well.
It could
Yeah.
be hit or miss a little bit, but I'll throw another team. I mean, yeah, I think we were talking about conspiracies in the previous one. There's no conspiracy for the Raptors. I think we discussed this just a few minutes ago. I think if you go 20 years in this case here, like to take the last 20 years, I would say arguably about 18 of those 20 years, a Raptors been represented in the All Star game. You coaches went through a bit of the history. You go back to Bosch and Vince. Okay, Bosch is on almost every year he played for the Raptors, except for maybe rookie year. That's about it. Please with the conspiracies. I said before, teams that might have a beef with conspiracy right now might be the Sacramento Kings, perhaps here. I would even say that point in this point, based on what coaches now and what we just watched last night, I think the Cavaliers are sitting there going like, "We're the second best team in the East. Hello,
Yeah.
should we not get two representatives?"
To be
Jeff,
fair, though, their other guys have been in and out of the lineup.
I'm just saying that
Like
usually
Garland missed like a month.
true, but the guy would
Mobley
be
missed a
Allen.
month.
Would have been
Yeah,
the guy.
yeah. Allen would be the one that would have
Yeah.
gotten snubbed.
And
Yeah.
I'm just saying that history, based on that, usually if you're a team that's a successful team, and a two seed for that matter, one of the five best records or six best records in the league, you tend to have more than one guy at least be considered. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I
Yep.
mean, I know people made this point. I want to address it right now. I'm not saying that team success is the only thing that matters, but it is a little bit of like your team is represented in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of people will say, like, I mean, our team is the best team in like X, Y, and Z. Why don't we have at least one All Star? That's something that routinely will come up in conversations with people. So yeah, it's not directly team related, but it is. There's times when Bradley Beal, didn't make it. He was putting up good numbers and his team sucked, and that's why. And even more so, team success matters for the other awards that are about to come at the end of the year in terms of all NBA and stuff like that. So
Well,
yeah.
I mean, if we just make it really reductive in this case here, the fact is, if you're an all-star quality player, that means your team you should be able to contribute to your team winning.
Yeah, there's an impact that you're
Right?
expecting. That's why people are like, well, if we have two all-stars, we'll be good. If Barnes is an all-star next year and like one of Quickly or Barrett, then we could be, off to the races in theory, right? And part of that is like you're looking at these guys in tiers where it's like a guy who's an all NBA level guy is up here, whereas like an all-star is not as prestigious as an all NBA type thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's no because look, Brooklyn's better than us. Do they have an All-Star?
No.
No. Chicago's better than us, a lot better than us. Do they have an All-Star? Not even DeMar DeRozan's an All-Star this year. He's always an All-Star. So I don't think there's a conspiracy. Now, person who was seventh in MVP voting as of last week, not being an All-Star, i.e., Domantas Sabonis, that's a little odd.
Mhm.
Scotty Barnes was seventh in MVP voting. I would be very upset if he wasn't an All-Star.
Yeah, we got a long ways to go before that too. So, with that being said, since there's nothing else to really add, I'll just say one thing really quickly. It'll be interesting to see how this impacts because sometimes All Star selections can have an impact where you're around people that now you're in a different category of people, and that can really affect you potentially positively. I'll say potentially because if you're around those people, especially if you're ahead of your peer group, you're around people who are presumably a little bit more mature in terms of their game and stage of their career, and potentially that could, impact you. I know the All-Star break is more for fun and stuff like that, but it could impact you in a positive way. So, are you guys ready to talk about the rest of the stuff that we outlined? So, the Toronto Raptors. I'm going to start with the Toronto Raptors deals. At least the
Oh,
last deal that they made.
we're gonna do the media situation.
Yeah, Dennis.
I was wondering who you're talking about. You had me going. I was like, ooh, did I miss something?
We
No,
lost Dennis. Dennis will not be on the Raptors show. That was announced because he got traded. He was supposed to be on the Raptors show that day, to be perfectly honest, and then he was missing. And the next time you saw him, he was doing some sort of video for the Brooklyn Nets. So Dennis is no longer with us. And we
you
had
the
a
Raptors had that as the deadline to make the deal. We gotta do it before we go to the show, man. We gotta do it before. I'm serious. I am
it's
serious.
possible.
Bobby was on the show the next day, so it makes me wonder
I
a little
I
bit.
was I was tempted to ask Blake, hey, is Dennis still coming on?
But Blake mentioned it. Blake said we always had that great moment. You always wish the broadcaster we were
Yeah,
about so hey, I do think they know they listen to everything. They listen to us on Spaces. They know. They know what
they
time he
do
comes
know.
on. The PR people know when to send Dennis out. They know what his time is every week. They want to
Yes,
make that deal before then, man.
exactly.
They had a
So
Harrison Barnes situation there.
we'll come back to the Raptors stuff in a second. But yeah, because the Raptors had a very interesting deadline. So before we go into it, do you want to just actually, yeah, should we talk about the Raptors stuff? Just get it out of the way, or do you want to talk about it at the end?
Hey man, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. You can keep the people hungry in this case here, give the people what they want. So let's
Hey,
just get out here. These folks here, they'd be starving,
yeah,
crazy.
they're starving. There's not enough pizza around,
Yeah,
anyways.
man, they're like
And
addicts,
we're not
man.
like Detroit. We don't get Wingstop every so often.
Right.
So
They need their Raptor fix, man. They'd be just salivating for it. So let's just get it out the
We
way.
don't get any pizza parties, so
yeah. So coach actually outlined this, I think it was you, coach, where you were like the two deals, it was one or two of you or both of you that outlined that it's like, do these deals kind of seem like they were done by two different people?
that was you.
It was me.
No, I think
Yeah.
it was me.
Yeah, so
Oh,
yeah, I think it might have been beyond. It wasn't me.
oh,
But
it was you.
yeah, I mean, it was just odd. Because one seemed really planned out, and then here's the shocking thing is it was one of the first deals announced.
Mm-hmm.
So usually you're like, yeah, you know what, I'll check, Woj or whatever, just to see what's going on for the trade deadline. But like, really, you expect the Raptors to do their work close to the end, right? Close to the closing time.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I look up, it's like the third or fourth deal in a day. A lot of the deals, this trade deadline was kind of muted in terms of big star moves. We
Well,
can get
most of
into
them
that.
happen. Yeah, most of them happen early. That's why.
Most of them happened earlier, but any of the big ones that were rumored just did not happen, which is interesting. And part of that has to do with CBA stuff, which we'll get into later. But all of a sudden, you see the Raptors, and you're like, "Whoa!" And then you look, and you're like, "Okay, interesting." And you start trying to process the deal and stuff like that. So, yeah, Kelly Olynyk ended up as a Raptor. It's one of the I don't know if we talked about it on the show or not, but I know we have discussed it offline and tweeted about it. Both of us or all of us had no problems with Kelly Olynyk coming here as a Raptor. We had different ideas of how to get there, and this deal ended up not being that bad. The Raptors basically traded the worst of their first round picks currently that they possess to the OKC equivalent, or the 29th pick in this year's draft, to basically get, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, Oshai Obaji,
Yeah.
as well as Kelly Olynyk. Kelly Olynyk is obviously a hometown guy, you know, has a lot of long-standing ties to this team, with both parents at some points being part of the Raptors' past. Just simply put, seems like the Raptors have some backup plans for the future. We'll get into that at the very end of the Raptors section. What else is interesting is the other guy that came and what went out. So Kyra Lewis, because he kind of went through two teams to get to us, we could add him to other salary, and we were basically able to get rid, not get rid of, but trade him. We traded a guy who basically does not play on this team currently in Otto Porter, as well as Thaddeus Young, also departed the team and was waived subsequently the next day. Uh, any questions so far? Any comments so far? Am I missing anything? I don't think so.
I mean, essentially, I think, I heard earlier on the Reese report, you guys are mentioning this coach. Like, if you just go down to just basic logic, you got two guys that will play versus two guys that weren't playing, right? And I think that's a great way to think of it. And then the key part in this case, in my mind, which is also after that, is you got rid of one of these 2024 picks, because I've been asking, how much is the 2024 pick worth for you? And I don't think it's worth that much. So if there's any way you could throw the weakest of the ones that you had into the pot, which this is the weakest one, fantastic. Because it makes no sense if you're gonna have a pick that's three picks ahead of the one you have from Detroit via New York, Detroit via New York. What's the sense I'm picking it?
Especially in this specific
Right.
draft.
Right, especially with this new CBA, man, guaranteed money. You're not trying to waste on that.
And
So
this is
you,
also where I disagree with a lot of Raptors fans. There's some fans that think that Masai wants to get into the draft, and I actually think the opposite.
I think so too.
Sampson has said the same. I mean, this front office does some wild stuff. I don't think that they're that far gone because 12 months ago they basically, blanked, insert word on the draft, on this year's draft. I don't think that they suddenly magically found VHS tapes of the new Bruno Caboclo and got excited. Okay.
Yeah,
And frankly, people, they go to France every year and they scout guys every year. This is nothing new. For all you know, they could have been scouting some dude who's in like, because they track these guys since they're like 8 years old and stuff like that sometimes.
yeah, and just on the side, honestly, when it comes to like if you think of this on baseball terms about where's the prospects, the great places for prospects, right now Canada's probably up there in the top 3 or 4, and
Mhm.
France is like number 2 besides the United States probably at this point.
Yeah.
Right? That's
France
where the
is rising with all their prospects, especially in this coming draft. I know it's as Kenyon says it's a flat draft, which I agree with. But when you have 3 or 4 guys probably going the top 20, one's going number one, more
right.
than likely, they are pumping NBA prospects. Give them credit, man.
Yep.
Sure.
Yes. And there's one of these days we'll have a conversation about why certain places are rising, and I have a theory about France in terms of their demographics and also in terms of both from just a people composition, but also socioeconomic composition.
Well, the soccer team tells a lot. Let's put it that way.
It does. It really does because yeah. Anyways, that's a whole discussion on itself. It's an interesting discussion though, but
In
yeah.
this country, but we'll move on from there.
Yes, same with this country as well. So, yeah, I thought that the Kelly Olynyk deal was a good deal. I'll say the Kelly Olynyk deal. I know he's not the only person, but I thought it was a good deal. I think Bobby even outlined it, and Masai also outlined that they were going to trade one of the picks that they had. They said we're not going to use all 3 picks, as in it sounds like they only want 2 picks for this draft, and one of those they don't want to be their own. They did that.
Yeah.
They obviously got worse in the Siakam deal. They got better in this deal. Not as better as from before, but better than where they were. So I think Ochai. I personally like him as a player prospect. You have 2 years to kind of evaluate where he is. Came out of Kansas, 14th overall pick, was included in that Donovan Mitchell trade, if I'm not mistaken. He's a solid guy. He's kind of at a weird start to his career because when you get traded right away and then you kind of are still finding your way, then you're traded right away. It's kind of hard to kind of find your footing, but he projects to be kind of a 3-and-D guy. I heard someone say he could be Jimmy Butler. Don't think so. I project him more to be Danny Green, but he's always been a fighter. Redshirted his or part of his first year and rose all the way up to become an NCAA champion. And I think he was like outstanding player of the tournament or whatever. Really, really solid and hard worker. I believe 6'5", 6'6", has also the physical size that makes him a little bit girthier, bigger, and so you expect him to be a potential wing defender in the future. Kelly Olynyk, just to finish off our side of things, because again, I told y'all on this podcast, Kyra Lewis probably ain't gonna be a Raptor for that long. Honestly speaking, you look through it, and Kelly Olynyk does exactly the things that we want our backup center to do, considering what our starting center, who is usually unable to finish games, does. So he's a better passer, a little bit more dynamic offensively, and to be honest, in terms of the way that Darko likes to play, he's probably the better overall center for what you want. I'm not saying that he's more talented. Like there's certain things that Pirtle does better than him, but overall, it's a good differentiation of skill sets.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I kind of viewed the trade in 2 parts. It was Otto and Kyra Lewis for Kelly Olynyk. And you're just like, great, you do that deal in a heartbeat. One guy who plays, 2 guys who doesn't. And then that second piece was the late first for Ochai. That's how I kind of viewed this. It's similar to the OG deal, for example. Like it was probably OG for Quickly, oddly enough, Precious for RJ, and then like Flynn for that second round pick. That second round pick, by the way, is very valuable. It's more valuable than the 29th pick because the second round pick is you're getting a similar talent, but not non guaranteed money if it doesn't pan out. So
Could
you
be
kind
Flynn.
of get that. It could be
I'm sorry.
it could be hopefully someone 6'11", 7 foot really
Maybe
really
Kyron
really
It could very well could be a lot of things,
yeah.
but it is actually good. And then even from a money standpoint, it's non guaranteed money that you can sign now for up to 4 years and retain bird rights, which is great. So yeah. Um, any other thoughts, Coach?
I heard a comparison the other day, and I'll say his and Penzer. He said Kelly Olynyk might be the fourth best player on this team, and I thought that was like no. After watching the game last night, I don't think he's far off from that, quite frankly.
He's probably not, but that's not a good thing.
No, that's what exactly what I mean. If he might be our fourth best player, the the
there's
the
work to be
talent
done,
level,
man.
the floor of our talent level has to get better, big
Yeah,
time.
because after Kelly, there's a talent drop off. Now, that's a good question because I would okay by next year I would say Grady should surpass that and be in that top four discussion. And if he really pops, maybe top three. We'll see. But yeah, I'll leave that for another day. Beyond your thoughts.
Hey man, like I mean Kelly. I mean I've been begging for that pick and pop 3 point big man for the longest time, man. I mean I think we might have a show where I was mentioning PJ Washington at some point. I think I mentioned Olynyk's name at some
We talked
point.
about Wendell Carter Jr.
Right, there's another example. So it only took them about 3 years to finally find one. These guys are 4 years. So hey, good luck. Glad to see it, guys. Good job.
Trust in
Um,
Masai.
yeah, trust in the side, man. So, but Scotty cherish Kelly, man, because believe me, man, there's been a lot of thin years when a guy like that. We ever had a guy like that. I don't think the last time we had a guy that was Ibaka. That's the last time we had a guy like that. That is, that's the last time we had a guy like that. So I'll say this: I'm more interested in Abaji. That is the guy that intrigues me because
Hmm.
I think he's a bit more than just being a 3-and-D specialist. I watched the kid in college. I like what I saw from there. He's got good size and the right matchups. He can put on the floor a bit. I'm not saying he will be the one for one like this player, but he's almost like if he could get it right, he almost could be a bigger version of a Norm Powell if he gets
Right.
it right at that level of player.
A
If
little bit more and doesn't have to take as long because Norm had to learn how to play defense a little earlier
right,
on.
he kind of got that part kind of figured out a little bit, and I think the shooting, is decent enough that he could work on that. But he's got good hand, he got a decent dribble. I don't think
Finishes at the rim too,
he
at
finishes at
around
the rim, and he's got
above, or it's around league average to
he
a little
averaged a
bit
little
above.
slightly above it. And the thing
Yeah.
what I like with him is like the floor is really good for him around there because he seems to have a little more touch around the rim. I mean, the early days of Norm, people forget about that, man. Norm used to break the backboard going to the hoop sometimes, man. It's like, whoa, easy there, partner. It took a while to refine that. So he doesn't have that to deal with. I think he could be a little bit more than what people expect. And I am looking forward to excited to watch him play with that second unit.
Got to work
Yeah.
on the jump shot.
Yeah.
Yes, I think he can knock down corner threes just fine at a decent clip. I think it's 40%. I can't remember from which corner. I'm not looking it up right now, but yeah. So I think he's just he's a solid 3-and-D guy. You're not expecting him to self create or to create for others, but he can drive. He can do a little bit of things if defenses are respecting the shot, and then you go from there. And then obviously it's important to mention that Kelly Olynyk obviously does sound like he wants to resign here. I think that he will resign here. I think we were talking the day before, and I said I think he will resign here. So I still think he will, just because bird rights, as well as if you look at throughout the league, there's better higher end free agents other than him specifically that other teams will probably utilize all or any of their cap space towards before they get to him. He's probably that bottom of second tier type free agent. It's not the best free agent class to begin with, and so having the bird rights and obviously the connection there, I think helps quite a lot. um I think we should probably talk about the deal that didn't happen, and then we'll talk about the Schroeder deal as well. So the deal that didn't happen was the Bruce Brown deal. Chris Boucher is still here, as well as GTJ. I'm a little shocked that GTJ is still here, just because of all the talk about it, and also Chris Boucher, because the day before, there were papers that came out. I didn't write the paper, so don't get mad at me, Chris. That basically said that he's not a good fit for Darko's system. So when that usually comes out, it usually spells disaster. Now we talked about this, and I said this front office is messy in terms of telegraphing their moves through the media far too often, especially for a team that has ties to the media. That's a dumb thing to come out, because it doesn't help your trade value. But the Bruce Brown deal that did not happen is fine, because Bruce Brown's guarantee date for his next for the team option happens after the draft. So there's multiple things that they can do. They can either keep him. Bobby did mention that they could not re-sign him, basically decline the option and re-sign him at a lower number. Don't really see that happening. The number's actually very close, so I think it's 20. He's making 22 million this year, 23 million the next year. It's around the same. You can always trade him at the draft, help someone to either get off that number or do exactly what I talked about. And that helps another team to get a potential contributor and, trade him to move up in the draft if there's someone that you like. Any thoughts on that before we get to the Schroeder stuff? Otherwise, I'll just keep it moving.
No, not
He's still
really.
here.
I just find it funny, man. Like the GTJ has more lives than nine cats in this case here, man. He seems to always be surviving, man. Everybody's going about the door, and the bandana stays around every time, man.
Yes.
Yeah. I They had a threshold for Bruce Brown. They wanted a first. They never got it. I'm fine with them keeping him, because my thing is, if I'm evaluating the Bruce Brown that's been in Toronto, you're not getting the first for that performance that he's done. So I just don't see it. If it's the Bruce Brown that you're betting on that you had Denver for the championship run, absolutely. So I'm not shocked they didn't get a first, but they stayed firm with their asking price, and I'm fine with that, because if it's contract, that team option, you can extend them or you can trade them, and I think that will be a good trade piece come the draft, and hopefully you're able to get a 2025 or 2026 pick moving forward along with the player.
It sounds like that's what they're looking for as well.
Yeah.
So either again a prospect or a someone that you don't have to worry about paying them staggered out. They
Because
didn't
it's
want.
gonna.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, no.
It's going to get interesting if we keep our pick this year and then you don't have one for 2025. What are you going to do then? Who's the best contract you can get rid of maybe for that 2025 pick for a late first? It's probably Bruce's.
I mean, I think Bruce Brown. Either way, whether you keep your pick or not, I would do that either way.
Oh, I
So,
would too. I'm just saying it's going to get
no offense
interesting
to
if you
Bruce,
keep your
it's just
pick.
yeah. But yeah, you know what? We will talk about that idea in just a second. First, I want to talk about the fact that Dennis Schroeder is now gone. We traded him for Spencer Dinwiddie, and then, of course, if Spencer plays 2 games here, we would have had to pay a $1.5 million bonus. So we just said, pack your stuff and get home. He's going to sign in Los Angeles with the Lakers, of course. Interesting. I'm curious to know what happened behind the scenes with Dennis. I will say this. It seems like this is now a move to make Scotty Barnes a full-time backup point guard in some senses and give him more point guard reps. It also takes the security blanket away from Darko, because Darko tends to use Dennis as a trust exercise or whatever. He's the guy that catches Darko, but he doesn't really catch him, and Darko still bumps his head on the ground. But we still do the trust exercise. So at the end of the day, it just seems, like like we're moving forward without Dennis, and that's perfectly fine. Because I don't think we were using Dennis in the right way anyways. He's a backup guy. He's not really supposed to be leading your team. I do find it particularly interesting that we didn't flip the other guy, or like we didn't have the patience to kind of go through the exercise. Like the first deal seemed like a very proactive deal. The second deal seemed like, shoot, trade deadline's ending. We don't have a deal. Let's rush and put a deal together. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it was like You have two tests in one day. You study for one test and you don't study for the other. That's what this set seemed like to me.
Yeah,
Um,
because you think that they would have been able to flip Spencer to anyone or someone for something of value, a second in the future or something.
yeah, you don't do the deal unless you can flip him somewhere, unless you have, a team on board to do that. I just would have kept Dennis till the rest of the year. I mean, on its surface, when it first happened, great. Dinwiddie is, I get it. Dinwiddie and Dennis might be similar in that regards, like their numbers and maybe uh, how their standing was on each of their teams, kind of little hit or miss, which happens. But you got off a year of a contract and you got a guy who can, put 25 up for you if he gets hot or 30. Dinwiddie can do that. And then they've traded two guys and just got nothing for him. I really found that irritating. We cannot afford to be trading two quality guards, i.e., Fred and Dennis, and get nothing back in return. I just found that really just poor asset management moving forward. And
We
now we
didn't,
don't have
yeah.
a now we don't have a backup point guard. I know they're going to give Scotty run. I get that. Okay, keep Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie plays combo guard too. Beyond would know that from when they were in Dallas together. So you can still play Scotty at point and Dinwiddie plays off of him. And you would have been off the money at the end of the year. If it isn't like being here, well, guess what? You're here for 3 months and then you're gone. See ya. But you can't help but to get to the play-in game. So just it really irritated me. Like it's like we made a lemon meringue pie and forgot to put the meringue on the lemon. It's just like last year. You got Pirtle last year, and you never get a guard to help Fred because he went 2 years without a backup guard. So just stuff like that. I found it irritating.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it certainly is going to be interesting, to see what happens moving forward. But it was a odd piece of business, we'll say, to end the trade deadline.
It is.
Yeah.
And look, the Dennis Darko thing, I get it. It was a bit odd, but Dennis Schroeder, at the end of the day, is a quality guard. He's an NBA guard. He's
Mm,
probably one of the top two or three backups you're going to find in the NBA. And I know he really wants to start, but you deal with that in the offseason. You deal with that 3 months from now, not in the middle of the season when either one could have helped you. That's
mhm.
just my opinion.
Beyond.
I would say that to coach's point, I think you could just look at that. It was almost like hurry that the last second to say, okay, we're getting pressure from Dennis's camp. Let's just do something to get it over with and just rip the band-aid off. But they didn't think about the next move after that. It's like, okay, fine. Brooklyn's having a fire sale. You know, we all know Dinwiddie wanted to get to LA or vice versa. That was probably one of the teams. I'm sure they pick a couple others we could probably think of. You can make a quick deal for like a draft pick from the Lakers, or Lakers don't have much draft picks. But even if you got yourself like one of the young players, something like that, there's ways to get around this. I mean, once again, it goes back to the point I say all the time with the Raptors. The Raptors only could do it A for B trade. Can't do a 3-part deal. Never has been a flaw in this front office from time because that's the only way that will work if you got a 3-team deal. But they can't do that. That's too much confusion for the Raptors. It's like, no, man, that's as far as we go. That's about it. And it's just so haphazard. But it is what it is for like a million and a half. Like really, like it just seems a bit like
It was odd.
it's odd. As I said before, I mean, I think I mentioned you guys offline. Is like two different people did the two deals. One was so meticulous with every point making sense from the draft pick all the way in this case of who they got off of. This one seemed like okay, it's like you're cramming for the exams. Like I better put something down, C, and call it a day. Like
Yeah.
and see what happens. That's
Yeah,
what
the
it felt
the
like.
person that finishes the test, with 5 minutes to spare, and the person that is writing down the answers, and the TA comes and is like ripping away the paper. That's
Yeah.
the difference.
One person studied,
But
the other person didn't study for the exam.
beyond your I think you muted yourself just for a second.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, a little traffic, family traffic going on
Oh,
here.
gotcha. Um,
But
so,
yeah,
so we'll be quick and not go through every single deal. But what I will say was we'll go through the key deals. So just a little bit faster here. So we'll first start off. I'll throw beyond a bone. We're gonna talk about the Mavs. Okay, the Mavs made two or three different. I think they made three different deals. So we'll talk about them in kind of a pseudo reverse order, or not in any particular order. But yeah, first one is they did a pick swap. I thought that was really interesting. It's interesting from the other team standpoint. So the the Mavs got a 2024 first rounder, which I think that they used subsequently to trade for not PJ Washington, the other individual that they brought in. Sorry, I'm
Oh, Gafford.
for
Gafford.
Gafford. And so they used that to, because the Wizards basically wanted some sort of draft pick to get Gafford. Fair enough. Very good move. I think that, obviously Lively's been great for them, but they want some sort of experience, and also they have the money and the right contracts and like Rashawn Holmes to send out. Makes a lot of sense. Also tells you the value of a 2024 pick for certain teams. So, with that being said, you do that. It's interesting from an OKC standpoint because I believe it's an unprotected 2028 pick, if I'm not mistaken.
So
So,
yeah,
Luca's deal is up in 2026.
yeah,
So, it might be very interesting. I'll leave it at that.
yeah. Well, it goes the other way too in this case here.
Yes.
I mean, a particular player for OKC's deal is going to be up before then too.
That too. So it's kind of you're protecting yourself from yourself,
Yeah,
and you're hedging certain bets. And also OKC, from the OKC standpoint, they have so many picks to trade that some of these picks are just going to have to future assets. So I thought it was an interesting piece for both teams. Good move. They also added PJ Washington and 2 second rounders in exchange for a 2027 first, as well as Seth Curry and Grant Williams. Grant Williams deal hasn't really worked out. I wasn't surprised that he was one of the pieces that was moved. PJ Washington, nice piece of business. I know defensively he's not going to help them in the ways that they might need, but offensively I think he offers some pop. I watched a little bit of their game the other day. Both pieces are fitting quite nicely.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like they fit. I mean, if you think of like Luca, even from a Kyrie perspective, I mean, just to have those type of outlet, have an outlet like PJ Washington, that's what they imagine Grant Williams to be on the offensive side. Obviously, Grant Williams provides a little bit more defensively. They deal with power forwards defensively. But the thing I told you guys when that deal happened, the free agency market, I said on paper it looks great, but I said I'm not really sure what the Grant Williams personality with Luca and Kyrie. I don't know how that's going to fit. And not surprised in this case here that it didn't really fit the way they thought it would. But PJ's deal, love it. I already mentioned earlier on in the pod. I think the other thing too is Gafford. Oh my gosh, thank goodness, man! I love that. I mean that's a deal I was hoping that the Raptors would do in this case. Like that's the
Yes,
type of deal I was
that
hoping
was
for.
one of the centers that we liked.
Yeah,
A little bit different of a center than Kelly Olynyk, but he can play, he can ball out, and he would be in terms of a direct Pirtle replacement, he would have been a really good direct
yeah.
Pirtle replacement.
And he would provide some sort of resistance at the rim, like some
Yes.
sort of protection of the rim. And I mean, that's why I think, much as I love Lively, I think he does do that a little bit, but Lively just doesn't have the physical tools yet to deal with that yet. And he's almost still better, almost like how Scotty is, where he's off ball, getting that type of stuff and just roaming. So I mean, you could play them together. You could play them, you could play them together. You could play them separately. There's a lot of ways you could work Gafford in with this lineup. So Dallas needs to get bigger. Let's face it, the West is big, man. They got to
It
get some
is.
size. Like, it just wasn't gonna be enough for little young Lively, and except for we need some ground provisions out there. Ain't enough for him, man. Like with them boys out there, there's some hardy, beefy dudes you're dealing with out there in the West.
Yeah.
Uh, Coach, your quick thoughts on the Mavs two deals, I guess we'll call them.
I've loved what Dallas has been doing since the draft. Drafting Lively and Omax, I think they've done a great job in identifying those two players to complement Luca. I think at this trade deadline with PJ Washington and Gafford, once again, I think these are good moves. They're making their contracts are really good too. I think they're both making around 15 to 13 million dollars a year or something like that. And they're with them, I think, for the next 2, 3 years. And they're both like around 25. They fit Luca's timeline as well. So I think Dallas has done a really good job. I think you can make an argument that Dallas had probably the best trade deadline of all the teams. An argument I think you could make.
Absolutely. Do you want to talk about the 76ers for a second, or
Nope.
not really? Okay, so Sixers, they get Buddy Hield. Of course, they trade out Kirk Moss, who wanted out before in the last deal. He's like, "Am I going to?" They also, so that's, he went to the Pacers along with Doug McDermott, which means that, you know, our favorite team, the Spurs, actually helped facilitate that deal, and a second round pick from the Raptors actually went in that deal to the Pacers. So the Pacers replenished some of the draft stock that went out. They got a 2024 Raptors second round pick. Yay! As well as they got a 2029 Blazers pick, which is second round pick, which is interesting. The Spurs, we don't really have to talk about them, but just so people know, they got Marcus Morris, as a salary filler for their thing, and a 2029 Clippers pick. I think it was really interesting. It's, you know, Buddy Hield helps the Sixers, who obviously just lost Joel Embiid, to get a little bit more offensive punch, but at the same time, it allows them to keep their financial books clean for the free agency market. Thought that was interesting. I don't know if you guys want to add anything from that. We'll go through some of these deals faster but you know, if you have anything quick to add, we'll go. Otherwise, we'll move on to the one thing is kind of the Suns adding the two players that they added. But yeah,
Well, I'll just say this, and I'm curious to talk about one deal that you haven't mentioned. I think it's just addition by subtraction for Indiana. That's all I'll say about that. I think
yep,
you just can't be a serious playoff team with Buddy Hield as your starting two guard. It can't. You can't. The two cannot mix.
nope.
I'm sorry. It's a fine shooter, great shooter. I'm a Boomer Sooner fan. I know what he's capable of doing. But when it's all said and done, that ain't gonna cut it when we get to May and June, man. That just ain't gonna cut it.
Yeah, it's just not. And look, I like Buddy, but this is all contingent on Embiid. They don't have Embiid. You might as well not even. If Embiid was out for the year and they acquired Buddy, that would be wasteful on their part because Buddy ain't gonna be the number two option on a team trying to win a championship. It's got to be Embiid and Maxi Harris, and then probably Buddy Hield. If you have that, then okay, sure. But this is you just got to wait till Embiid comes back. If they might lose a bunch of games, it might not be in a top 5 seed until Embiid comes back. He's going to be out for a month, 2 months, whatever it's going to be.
So now the Pacers are now just like the Raptors, where they're hoping for each side to lose so they could get better, get a better improvement on their draft selection. It's a cute, interesting little thing.
More or less. Yeah, I don't have anything more to add to that. The next deal, really quickly, Suns emptied the whatever cupboard of, you know, cobwebs and second round picks that they had. They traded 3 future seconds, you know, and other things, and I think
Look, man,
a pick swap.
chalk this up to new owner syndrome. That's all you need to say.
Yes.
That's it,
Basically,
man.
new owner syndrome. They ended up with Royce O'Neal and David Roddy. I don't think we need to talk about this. I think it's a nice piece of business for them. It makes them a little bit better. But you know how I feel about the Suns. I don't think that they're going anywhere. So we can just
Any
move
more
on.
KD's friends in Brooklyn? Just curious.
Yes, unless Coach wants to add anything in particular, we're just going to go right to the Thunder.
These deals with Phoenix, they're very much like they say how the attention span of people today is much smaller than it was like generations ago because it's instant gratification. That's the Phoenix Suns. What are you doing for me now? And they're going all in on whatever this is.
Yes. I'll actually add a couple small deals now really quickly. The Banton deal. So Banton goes to the Blazers for a top 55 protected second rounder, which is ridiculous, which means that they just like got rid of him for nothing. But the Celtics also brought in Jaden Springer. I guess it's just, you know, you see what he has. I think the Celtics are just looking for, you know, to keep the point guard cupboard stocked in case Derek White leaves, because Derek White might be one of the premier free agents this year. I think he has does he have a player option or not? Either way, I think he's one of the guys that might be someone to look out for in this free agency. So yeah. All right. Do you want to talk about Thunder? You want to talk about the Knicks? I find the Thunder deal is very fascinating. I know not everyone likes the Thunder deal.
I find both are
I
both
think
teams.
the other one, yeah, but go ahead. Start with your OKC one. You've been chomping at the bit to talk about this one. So
They got Gordon Hayward. I'm a fan of Gordon Hayward in the sense that, like, yeah, expensive contract, but he can still hoop when he's healthy. As long as you're not relying on him to be your top a top 3 guy. I don't mean that from a talents perspective, but he's not healthy, right? So he's probably going to play more than an Otto Porter, that's for sure. But in the playoffs, he has a little bit of playoff, not a ton, but he has a little bit of playoff experience, and they needed some sort of veteran leadership in that locker room when it comes to a playoff standpoint. And just in general, they obviously get off the money of Davis Bertans, and they get rid of 2 prospects. They have a lot of prospects on the way. We'll leave it at that. But I find it really interesting. What I'm surprised that they didn't do is I thought they were still going to go for a big.
That's the thing. I'm sitting here while I'm listening to you is like, I mean,
Yeah.
besides the Bertans contract, that's the biggest priority they had to
Yes.
get big. It was
Yeah, like I like the Gordon Hayward thing because it keeps their books also clean as well. But like,
yeah,
I'm surprised that they didn't go get a big.
yeah.
Now they just signed Bismack Biyombo, but I think that they could have. They're the team that I'm surprised that they didn't go for Gafford.
Yes, yes, exactly. That was surprising. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we watched this the other day. I think watching them play Minnesota, and I mean, Gobert was just mauling them down there. So I don't know how they expect to get away with that in 7 games against Anthony Davis, Gobert, Jokic. I keep going in this case here, man. Heck, even Big Z, the Clippers in LA might give them a little trouble. Like, I mean, like, there's like they got some serious issues with that, man. They might be like one of these Revlon teams that look good in the regular season, but it could come crashing down real fast if they don't shore that up. But that was surprising to me. That's it.
Especially when things slow down, get a little bit more physical in the
Right.
playoffs. Coach,
Yep.
any thoughts? Otherwise, we're going to go to the Knicks because you mentioned the Knicks.
Yeah, no, I like the deal in the sense that Hayward's expiring. If he's healthy, he's 15-5-5. Like he's a decent player, but keyword when he's healthy. But in that case, they can start to save some money to re-sign some of their guys on rookie contracts because a lot of them are going to get the rookie max or near the rookie max. You're going to Oklahoma City's never been a tax team, or not really. I mean, they let go of James Harden, remember, because they didn't want to pay any luxury tax, even though they could have won 4 championships. But anyway,
They did it 1 year too early or 2 years too early potentially. So,
yeah. But I didn't mind the move, quite frankly. They get off some money, but like you guys said, how they could not go out and get an Andre Drummond at the trade deadline or anybody over 6'10" right now with some size. Because if they think that this is part of a window, use one of your 200 draft picks to get one guy. Especially Gafford, like you guys said, he's 25 on a controllable contract. It's nothing.
Yeah, he's not making a whole heck of a lot more than Boucher, to be honest. So there.
Yeah, these draft picks, it's like on Lord of the Rings.
It hits
precious
home, doesn't
right
it?
now. Oh man,
That was a hard punch to the gut with that one. You said that. Man.
Sorry.
Oh, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I said he doesn't make a whole heck of a lot more than Boucher, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
So
I don't think he does.
it is what it is. Thanks, Masai.
Governor.
or as people would say, it's all Ed Rogers pulling the puppet strings from the golf course magically, because apparently Ed Rogers knows who, I don't know, Evan Fournier is. So with that being said, he doesn't. For the record, people don't take that seriously. Knicks. I like the business that the Knicks did. This is probably one of the last deals that we're going to talk about because, frankly, it's one of the last interesting deals that happened for the day. Muted trade deadline. There's a couple weird things that happened, but we're actually basically that. I think this is actually, it might be the last deal. So they get Alec Burks, they get Bojan Bogdanovic. I think this is, from an offensive standpoint, it helps them because OG is not a creator. Let's be honest. So there's that. Out goes the Evan Fournier. Flynn has a new stop. So shout out to the Flynn family. Ryan, I can't pronounce your name, and I've never really seen you play, so that's okay. Boom. 2 second rounders. They have extra picks. And Quentin Grimes, the one that everyone wants the Raptors to get. Now, from the standpoint of the Pistons, who were the other receiving team for that, I think it's interesting because obviously they cut Killian Hayes, and you get rid of that weird point guard, coach relationship. But the other thing too is that in terms of being able to play defense and focus on that, which I think the Pistons have been wanting to do, Quentin Grimes actually provides them a little bit more of what they need. that they were trying to do with starting the Thompson twin, while also having a little bit more offensive punch that you don't have to wait for. So I actually like the piece of business for them. And obviously, you get some stuff and you get off the contracts that they probably should have gotten off last year. So any thoughts? I think it makes the Knicks better, that's for sure.
Well, as the resident Pistons person here, I will just say this: bad boys, Detroit basketball. Look, man, I'm telling you right now, folks, you got a lot of jokes from my squad. Everyone got a lot of jokes. A proud franchise like Detroit. I'll tell you this much: Detroit's gonna be this year's Houston Rockets in the offseason. Mark my words, people. They're
Tobias
clearing,
Harris
they're
is going
clearing
to
the
go to
books.
the yeah,
We're gonna
yeah.
get 2 or 3 vets, and that might be one of them. You can see it already happening. They moved the Bagley move. What happened today? We're streamlining which young fellows we're gonna keep. And just like Houston situation, we get 2, 3 vets, and next year we're gonna be in the mix. Mark my words, folks. That's all I gotta say.
There's probably two people because I don't think that Pascal's going anywhere. So there's really two people that they're probably going to hunt. One of them is they might overpay for an OG Ananobi. That's very possible. The other person is, and remember, for people who want him to come back home, remember Casey was his first coach.
Right.
And they have the money, and OG wants the money, and he wants to be featured. That's maybe one of the best situations for him to do that. Although there is the Knicks, and if the Knicks have a good run and they're willing to pay the money, he might just stay on the Knicks. I would put Knicks number one, but he might use the other team as leverage. Don't be surprised.
Family
The
and
other,
friends, you
yep,
drive down to the 401 pretty easy. Family and friends could drive down the 401 pretty easy to watch him play. He
that
plays
is true. That is true. Tobias Harris is obviously the other one that they're hunting. It's been rumored for both of them. And then finally, I think that they might actually be a Clay Thompson destination. And so don't be surprised. It might be that, it might be Bridges, but it sounds like Bridges is probably going to stay where he is. So those are kind of the people that I think that they're going to hunt and be willing to pay extra for.
Yeah.
Coach? Any thoughts on the Pistons Knicks? I don't think we need to talk about Pat Bev and that sort of thing, although that's kind of funny.
So I think the Knicks had the best trade deadline. I know I said about Dallas. I think those were my two top teams who did well.
Mhm.
The Knicks never gave up a first round pick in any trade in the last 7 weeks. Not even OG. They still cut that whole treasure chest full of first round picks, and they've gotten better. Bogdanovich, as we all know, good player, good fit for the Knicks. Alec Burks, he's ready to come in now. They basically traded two guys, but they traded for two guys who can play for one guy who can play. And I'm not counting, no offense to Flynn and Fournier and the kid from Villanova. They can't really play that much.
Mhm.
So Grimes a great fit for Detroit. And like Beyond had said as well, you go sign Tobias Harris, let's just say, you got Duran, Harris, Cade, Ivy, and Grimes. It's a decent starting five moving forward. All you got to do now is get maybe another vet or two off the bench with already the young talent that they have. I think he's made a good point. They might be next year's Houston Rockets team.
We both have Thompsons.
And they have the Thompson
Absolutely.
kid. I totally forgot about him.
Both
Who,
have Thompsons. That's where the analogies continue.
yeah. So they're going to be interesting next year for sure. I think they will be better. Um, I think Ivy's got high end talent. Cade is just health. That's what it is with him. It's just health. You just don't know from week to week if you're going to have him or not. Duran's for real. I saw him dominate when the Raptors played him, and I can make an argument right now that Detroit individual talent better
Yes.
individually, not maybe not collectively. I don't know because when you're in that losing streak so much, it can mess with you. But individually, Detroit's got a lot of talent.
Now, and I'll just say one thing about Detroit. I think that they let go of Dwayne Casey 1 year, or not let go because he's still there, but Dwayne Casey probably could have been in that seat for another year, and I think it would have been just fine. I think that they went to buy a coach a little bit too early, um, in my opinion. That's just my thoughts on that.
Well, I'll just wrap it up in this note. I think that coach is going to actually close the deal on somebody in the free agency next this off season because he's one of maybe 4 or 5 coaches that could have that type of pull.
Anyone in particular, or just who knows?
I don't know who it's gonna be, but it's gonna be someone maybe we don't expect. I mean, that might be a really good bench player that's gonna be like, oh, he's going there. And I
That's fair.
think, I think Monty's got enough relationships and respect enough around the league that it's gonna be someone we don't expect right now. We haven't talked about. That's all I say about that. That's where the money and the value is gonna come in.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it from a Raptor standpoint, the only other thing that I will say is that it does seem like they are keeping their books open. I think that they want to make this rebuild as quick as possible. That doesn't mean next year, but I think that they're aiming to be on the up and up 25, 26. There's a Jamal Murray. They're getting a lot of Canadians. I think that hedging of the bets in case the current 6'9" point guard experience doesn't work out. With that being said, we will explore that on another episode of Basketball Rewind. So stay tuned, stay locked in, and take care, everyone. Peace. Enjoy the well. Hopefully, your team won, and if it didn't, don't bet on things because we're not sponsored by any sort of betting thing. So with that being said, enjoy, take care, and peace.